Every time I look at the video, I'm like, damn, my face is cut off.
So yeah, you keep going from like one side of the screen to the other. So you just need to adjust just a little bit to use
This way?
yeah, a little bit that away to your right.
This way?
There you go. You're centered. You're centered in the screen now.
I want to be centered mentally and emotionally as well, okay? I'm sorry, go ahead.
So hopefully you could see more tthan my lips.
I can't, but okay, it is. Hi, Randolph. How are you? I can't, but okay. Like I said, if in the end, if we have to change it from landscape to portrait, okay, that's what I have to do because I'm like, most of my videos, my face is cut off. I'm like, oh my God. I'm sorry, they didn't come for that.
Tech issues from the start. Gotta love it.
Okay, if you're on Substack, everybody knows about technical difficulties. Okay? That's the story of my life. Okay? This morning I got on and it said error. I'm like, okay, who did I piss off yesterday? I'm like, was I canceled completely? Not yet.
Oh.
Yes. So I was just basically waiting for a few more people come, guys. Alan and Randolph. If nobody else comes, we're gonna get this party started, okay?
Yeah.
Hi, Romy. Hi, Romy. How are you? Good to see you. Yeah. Yeah, because then when you start and then other people come in, they miss half of it. They don't even know who you are. You know what? Okay. Well, also, I started early, so I can't blame them, okay? Because I told you because I'm impatient, okay? Okay, so that's my fault. I went ahead of time.
It is all good. So one of the things that I do is I'm an online teacher, so I teach distance education for
Okay.
for university out of Iowa. So I'm always like tonight I teach class. And so I'm always in my classroom like 5 minutes early. And usually what I'll do is I'll sit and I'll chat with the early birds. I chat with the early birds and then we wait a few minutes for the people who want to kind of straggle in. And then I'll usually start class like 5 minutes after the start time. So we can just sit here and we could chat. I could have my tea, my morning here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. While we're sitting here, do you guys have any questions? I don't want to give anything away until we wait until at least 4 more minutes. Give people an opportunity to come in. I can't blame nobody but myself because I said to you.
You can blame me a little bit too because I still got that military mindset. 15 minutes early and you're on time. If you're on time, you're late.
Okay. And I served in the military for 39 years. How long was you in the
military? 11.
That was long enough. One day is long enough, honestly.
Yeah. I wanted to make it to 20, but the universe had other plans, so.
Yeah, I wanted to make it to 40, and the universe had other plans, okay? So when you got a group of people who don't want you to succeed, it's like, okay, that means that there's something else for me instead. Because
Absolutely.
Things should not be that difficult, okay? If something in your life is that difficult, you need to take a step back and look at this. Is this something that I really have to have? Is it necessary? When you balance it out with all the troubles and everything else you go through, it's like, no, it's not weighing up. It's not weighing up. Let me get the hell up out of here, okay?
Yeah, it was one of the best decisions I made. I used all those GI benefits. I used all those benefits I got from the VA, and now I'm getting my PhD.
Okay. Heaven help you. After I got my master's degree, I have to say you owe us $90,000. That's not including the interest. Okay. They said we're gonna do something to you if you don't make that payment. I'm like, you know what? I got other bills that needs to be paid way more than that bill. Okay.
See, I got so lucky. I did not take out a single bit of student loans. I did not. I was able to figure out how to use my post 9/11 GI Bill and vocational rehab, and I paid all the way through to the very first year of my PhD.
Why not? You done gave your life away to the government. Okay, your life don't belong to you. If they say jump, you're gonna say how high. Okay, where you want me to go next? Okay, so I was uh, I was a civilian with the Department of the Army. I didn't get none of that. So I paid for, I got a student, I got a Pell Grant to get the associate's degree, which got me into the door with the Corps of Engineers. Okay. I paid for the Bachelor's of Science degree in technical management with a loan, student loan that I paid off while I was working for the government. Then, 3 or 4 years before then, I like, you know what? I got to get my master's degree because there's so many coaches out there, so many people out there. How I'm going to set myself apart. In addition to the 39 years, okay? And it's being a certified coach, okay? And then I went back and got my systemic team coaching, okay? So that means I can go in and coach the leader and the team and interconnections in between, okay? Bringing the partners and everybody together. That's what I do anyway. So, like, hey, I got this piece of paper that proves what I can do. All right.
There you go. That is
Because, see, I didn't have the advantages like you had. Me, I'm going to tell you the truth. Me being a Black female, okay, a lot of people won't necessarily want to buy from me, but they'll buy from you. Okay? They'll buy from you. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll just have to find my tribe wherever they are. Okay? And that's okay. That's okay. But I'm just telling you how things are in the world.
Oh, no. I realize it, especially because, the area that I worked in the area that I worked in, I figured out very quickly the differences, the step up that I had as a white woman, because I was, primarily working with, Black and people of color. I was working with a lot of minorities, and watching them having to go out after the military and try to get jobs and watching how systemic those issues were, I quickly realized, like, that's that white privilege they keep talking about.
Okay?
That's that white privilege they keep talking about. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know from experience, but I watched. I watched it happen. I watched it happen in real time to people who had excellent records, who had excellent education, but it was the moment that they saw specific names on that resume or a specific person showed up and the way they looked, and all of a sudden, oh, I'm sorry, that position's already been filled.
Of course. How convenient. That's what they told me after I got my associate's degree. I went in with the National Oceanic Administration. I went in there. I applied everything. Okay. And then when I got to the interview, they say, you don't have any experience. I'm like, okay, thank you. Bye. They were telling me then, right there, you are not wanted here. Okay.
Which is,
I don't know what they call it, dog whistle or whatever, but I'm like, you don't have to beat me upside the head for me to recognize what you're saying. Okay.
yeah, that is so ridiculous. And it's so ridiculous because you don't know how much talent, how much intelligence.
They don't care.
But they don't
They
care.
don't care. You know what? And I wouldn't fit in there anyway, because I'd probably be the only one and I'll be the one poked and prodded and everything else. So we're going to get this party started because the time has started and this train has left the building or left the dock or whatever, boat, whatever. All right, here we go. So everyone, this is Natasha Durand, okay? And she's a writer. She is a life and wellness coach, PhD researcher who weaves together science, storytelling, and spirituality. Okay, and you help people to navigate meaningful life transitions. Okay, and so you're also the creator of the Wild and the Wise. Okay, it's a platform and a blog focused on holistic transformation, feminine wisdom, and everyday modern magic. Who don't want that? Okay. So on Substack here, you share essays, reflections, and live sessions centered around healing, growth, and small shifts that create big change over time. Okay. And some of the things that you are focusing on, emphasizing with your clients is inner compass, honoring your unique recipe for well being, bridging holistic wisdom, and modern life demands. Okay. I missed something. It was talking about, okay, your writing and your coaching highlights the themes of embodiment, okay, feminine joy, and reclaiming personal power. Okay. And so me and you connected from all of that spirituality and the fact that both of us served in the military. Okay. So I'm like, hey, this conversation has to happen because the spirit said so. Okay.
Your
All
energy
right.
was an automatic draw.
Well, thank you. That's the spirit. That's not me. Okay. So please, with no ado, please introduce yourself. Tell us how you got the Substack and what you're working on right now.
Yeah. Well, so I'm gonna be honest with you. I had to slow down a little on the Substack. I just went to India
Okay.
beginning in November. Yeah, so I went over to India. I went over to lead a class, a master's degree course there, where we actually were working in conjunction with an eye clinic. So we went over to a hospital, stayed on the campus at the hospital, and the eye clinic is amazing because it actually weaves in modern medicine. So it has all the modern amenities of a hospital, but it also weaves in a 5,000-year-old system of medicine called Ayurveda. And so we actually learned how we weave the modern understanding of the body and medicine with this ancient model of medicine. And so we actually were able to go in and we saw clients and we were actually able to participate in the treatments. It was an amazing experience. Which has now set me off on more writing, but more thorough writing. So I'm about 70 pages in right now on a bigger book. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to parse that apart and start Substack back up again, just to kind of drop some little bits of wisdom here and there. And on top of
Okay.
that too, I'm also in the middle of writing my PhD thesis. Right now, I'm doing some research. I'm doing a meta-analysis, what's called a meta-analysis and individual pooled data. So I'm taking
Okay.
multiple published studies, pulling them all together. I'm going to analyze them all together, but then I'm taking the participants. So I'm getting all the raw data, but I'm taking the participants, but I'm specifically focusing on the women because women are so horribly underrepresented in research, especially in the area I'm looking at, which is post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
So I'm going to be taking the raw data from that, and I'm looking at how integrative methods can be used as a form of treatment for women, especially women, just because, oftentimes we find that like therapy, like the traditional approaches, they don't work as well for us. They're often, re-traumatizing. They're making us relive our story. They're doing all these things. So I'm really looking at how we can get to women, support women through more integrative measures. Um, and so that's what that thesis is going to be focusing in on. And I'm about 70 pages with charts into that right now. So my Substack, it definitely focuses on those topics. And I'm especially hoping to connect with women in general, but also women who are raising children.
Okay.
Which is actually what our topic here is today, is because our stories, those stories, it's like a drop in water. It doesn't just stop there. It ripples out for generations to come. And a lot of research has pointed to how those stories can be felt generations later when we're very far removed from where that original drop started.
Okay. Go on.
Yeah, so my interest comes into play mainly just because of personal history. I'll be honest with you, it's where all research starts, right? We all have a story, and researchers are always, it's usually our story that gets us interested. And so my story is interesting for myself because, there were a lot of things that I was born with. I was born with psoriasis. I was born I was a little on the anxious side. I would always go, I was the worrier. I was always the fixer in the family
Mm.
from the start, and so my interest started there because I noticed the same tendencies with my own daughter. And I'm sitting back and I'm like, why? Like this, like my kiddo, I've like made sure my kiddos like they got a good life. They're spoiled. They're self-admittedly spoiled, right?
Okay.
So I'm like, why? Well, and I got to looking into it, and what we have found and what research has found is that our genetic code can be turned on and off by a lot of different environmental factors. But these environmental
Mm.
factors are even factors before we were even conceived. So
Mm.
these genetic factors are actually playing a role right now on the egg and the sperm. So even the egg and the sperm, they're responding to what's going on in
Okay.
the world right now.
Wow.
And so when the two meet and they make a baby, that genetic information gets carried along with them.
Makes sense.
And so then that genetic information, it kind of says, well, oh, you know what? We were conceived during a time of war. Our parents were in war. They were facing famine. They were facing consistent stress. And
Mm.
so what we've noticed is those children later on exhibit certain traits. One of the biggest studies was on a Dutch population. So there was actually a town during World War II
Okay.
that had been hit by a horrible famine on top of being in the war. Horrible famine. And so they noticed that generations later, like in the 1990s, the grandchildren of the people who survived this famine, they could not lose weight.
Wow.
Horribly overweight, could not lose weight. And they were like, why? And so they actually took a look at the family line and they found out these were the children of the survivors of this famine. And they started to look at their genetic makeup, like their genetic code, and they realized they had certain genes that were expressing that were holding on to the fat because their body was saying, we've survived the famine once.
Okay.
It ain't going to get that bad. We're not going to let it get that bad again. So we're
Okay.
holding on to everything we need. So the body
Wow.
responded to something that happened generations before, but the body was still responding. And so we've actually been taking a really close look at all of that and realizing that even things like PTSD, if we actually look at populations of veterans who have experienced PTSD from combat related incidents, and we look at their children, those children have a higher rate of anxiety than children from parents who do not have those problems.
Makes sense.
So we see the story being carried through generation by generation on our genes. And can you imagine what we could do if we could actually inform parents ahead of time? Inform parents ahead of time and let them know, like, look at your family history, look at what's going on. And that's actually part of what the studies that I do here focus on. So, actually, one of the classes that we have is called Happy, Healthy Parents and Baby. And
Mm.
what it looks at is how we treat parents before conception, during pregnancy, and even after pregnancy, so that we can help to ensure that we have the healthiest and happiest babies possible.
Mm.
So I'm noticing some comments. I saw we have a psych grad who is like, oh, this is like absolutely interesting. But I do see a question here. How do we compound and compound until we burst? That's a great question. Honestly, I think a lot of what we're seeing today is kind of that burst. What
Mm.
we're seeing today is a lot of people who are suffering from chronic depression, chronic anxiety. We have such an increased rate in CPTSD. We have a lot of social isolation. We have a society that is imploding on itself.
Wow.
And a lot of that is because especially, I know for myself, and I might touch a few buttons here, and I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but I was
Yeah.
my parents were boomers. Okay,
Okay.
my parents were boomers, and so the boomer generation was, "You don't talk about it." Right? The skeletons in the closet. The skeletons in the closet. You don't talk about that.
I was Generation Jones, so I get it.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, you get it. So, like, there is this long line of, like, we don't talk about it, we don't acknowledge it, we don't nothing,
No,
right? And
no,
so, there's a lot of trauma and a lot of things that are going unresolved that is causing kind of these, like, generational curses throughout the family line.
exactly. And that's why when I have an issue, I'm gonna address the elephant in the room because I'm gonna get it out because it's gonna bug me the whole time. And so I'm gonna get it out and be free. Okay?
Yeah, exactly. And so really, and I feel like a lot of modern parents are doing that today. A lot of modern parents are doing that today. Where we're sitting back and we're saying, this is what has happened. This is where we've been. It stops with me. And I think with that mindset and with education, with an understanding too of the traumas that they're dealing with, the anxiety that they have that they don't know in the middle when they're laying in bed in the middle of the night
Right.
and they can't figure out, man, why am I sitting back thinking about the thing that happened in high school 30 years ago? Feeling embarrassed. Why is that happening? It's happening because our bodies have become wired to be anxious, to be constantly worried. And why is that? It's because of our story, our family line. That generational story that we are feeling, those are those ripples that we are feeling all the way to this day. So,
Okay. How do we break it?
it's a conscious effort. So it's a conscious effort. It is consistent work. It is consistent and it's identifying the patterns. It's getting to that willingness to want to be uncomfortable.
Mm,
Okay. And this is where my work in habit change really comes into play because the problem is the brain doesn't like to be uncomfortable.
right.
The brain doesn't like discomfort. So the brain likes being happy. So the brain is going to look at ways to get those dopamine responses. So there's certain happy chemicals, right?
Yes.
They're very specific happy chemicals. We got dopamine, we got serotonin, we got oxytocin, we got norepinephrine, right? So the norepinephrine is what we know as runner's high.
Okay.
So oxytocin, I almost said oxycontin. That's the wrong.
That's okay. I don't want that. Thanks.
Oxytocin is when we're touched, when we're hugged,
Yes. Yes.
that initial contact. So, um, serotonin and dopamine are the most common though for us. That's the easiest to access. So, serotonin is when we're feeling like we are on top of the world,
Mm,
when we're feeling like we've got a leg up, like we are, mm. And then for some reason, my computer's deciding to, oh, there we go. No, it's still doing it. My computer decided it's going to record what I'm saying for some reason. So serotonin is when we're on top of the world, we are feeling like we have got everything, we are doing it. Dopamine is the reward system. Okay, so when we get that award at work or when we reward ourselves for a job well done, happy dance, whatever, dopamine's released. Our brain is consistently looking for ways to get those for that initial hit, right?
right.
And so
Right.
when we change it up, when we get uncomfortable, okay, when we start to dig around for the skeletons in that closet.
Here the closet go again.
Mhm. But our brain sits there and it's like, I don't like this.
Okay.
Why?
You looking for a way out. You looking for a way out. Like I got to get out of here.
Absolutely. It's looking for a way out. It is looking for a way. No, no, no. We want to be happy. We want the happy chemicals. I don't want to be stressed out. I don't want to release that cortisol. We're already stressed out enough. And that's a whole other issue, right? Our bodies are constantly stressed out, whether it is sitting in traffic day to day just to get to a work that we are not exactly in love with, or it's paying bills. where it's wondering how we're gonna get kiddo through college, right? We're constantly stressed out, so our brain is automatically like, "No, this is stressing me out. We have enough of that." So how do we overcome that? That is the biggest question. How do we overcome that? So
Well, temporarily, I'll go to McDonald's or I'll go and get a bottle of hot dog. I'll take these pills.
that is not actually the McDonald's is not a horrible idea. Oddly enough, it is one of the things that I suggest to any of the clients that I work with, the students that I work with. I tell them, I say, "Hey, here's the deal. Here's the deal. What you need to do is a lot of times people are coming in and they want healthier routines, healthier habits, right? So,
Right, right.
what they're wanting to do is these things, and I say, okay, eat the salad, and if you eat the salad 3 or 4 times out of the week, what's your favorite snack? And they'll be like, oh man, I love a good Snickers bar. I'm like, then if you get to that goal, head on to the grocery store, grab a Snicker bar, and just eat that Snicker bar, and be like, I did it, good job for me. And they look at me like I'm nuts. But the reason why is because what happens is we're sparking that dopamine, we're keeping the brain happy enough, we're allowing our brain to realize that the work we're doing is for a good cause.
And it's paying off
And it's
because you're going to get that reward at the end. Okay?
exactly, and it's paying off. And after a while, the neural network will start to rewire. So neural networks will start to rewire, and it will slowly but surely become easier. And then after a while, it will become habit, and we will be doing it just automatically.
Absolutely. Can I give you an example before I forget?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I was working with this trainer when I was living in El Paso. Okay. So, what agreement we had, I was going to eat clean for 6 days a week, and I was going to give myself 1 day to treat myself to whatever I wanted. Okay. When that day came, I still ate clean anyway. Okay, because he gave me that option, you know? And so that's how I rewired and reframed that situation. And it worked.
Yeah. And so we do the same thing even with those generational issues that we're facing. So when and I'll be honest, even my husband and I are here and we work on this together. My husband and I are both horribly anxious people. And for the longest time, our anxiety kind of just drove the car, right? So when we would get anxious, it would just be like, "Oh my god, I'm just anxious." And we would react to within that anxiety. And now today, when my husband's for instance, my husband's anxiety, when his anxiety will hit, he will message me and goes and he'll just tell me, "I'm anxious." And I'll say, "Why?" And he'll flat out say, "Well, I don't know, but here's the thoughts." And then him and I will make a concerted effort of sitting in that discomfort and saying, "Okay, well, what can we say?" We start to flip the script with each other. We start to flip that script. That's not true. That's not where we're at right now. That's not where this is. And then once we get through that, it's a congratulations, you've done such a great job. You got through it. Look at you go. And he's gotten, like we both got to the point now where we've actually started to be able to do that for ourselves instead of needing to do it for each other. So it is possible. I did see a question in the comments asking me what my PhD is going to be in. So my PhD is in physiology and health. And so physiology for my specific degree, I am mainly focused in on brain health. So I am looking at neurophysiology. My particular interest, though, is the connection between the gut and the brain, because the gut is actually it is a whole separate world. The gut
Yeah,
is actually a
right.
whole separate brain, and I'm actually really interested in that health aspect of things. Um, so I'm hoping to do some more research, where we can also talk about how if we, actually allowed people to eat right, then we could actually probably also figure out how to address a lot of our mental health issues here in the United States.
Wouldn't you agree that that's part of education? Just because somebody offers you a gallon of lard don't mean you have to eat it.
Well, I mean, but again, here is kind of this actually connects back to our point though, right? Is that our gut microbiome, which is all those little bacteria and all those things that live inside of our body that help us break down our food and extract all the nutrients out of it, right?
Mhm.
That again is we get a lot of that from our maternal DNA. So a lot of the maternal DNA that contributes to our physiology, it actually contributes heavily to the microbiome. And so
Mm.
the microbiome itself, again, is it's a second brain. It's consistently reacting and sending up these messages to the brain about like what's going on in the environment. One of the interesting things that we have found though is that when there's what's called gut dysbiosis, which is when basically it's when that whole community of bacteria are completely out of balance. The bad bacteria are dying out. The bad bacteria are taken over. And yes, it is. It's a lot of feed me sugar, feed me salt, feed me all the things that we crave, right? And what we have found is that when we have higher rates of this imbalance in the stomach, we also have higher rates of PTSD, depression, and anxiety.
Wow.
One researcher, she was actually working in a psychiatric unit, was working with people who had schizophrenia. And she had noticed there was a specific group of people there who were really having a hard time with schizophrenia to the point they were super depressed and they were actually starting to have suicidal ideations. Uh,
Wow.
Horribly depressed. But the one thing she kept noticing that there was a similarity between all of them, and that similarity was they had horrible halitosis.
Wow.
Horrible halitosis, and so they kept kinda, like, giving him all these prescriptions to try to see if they could, like, get rid of the bad breath, but she kinda soon found out, like, no, this isn't coming from in their mouth. It's actually coming from their stomach, and so
Wow.
she ran a series of tests and found that the gut bacteria in their stomach was so imbalanced, it was actually creating a smell, and, I mean, we've all smelled like bacteria before, right? That kinda sick smell when
Yeah.
bad bacteria is taken over. And she's like, "Okay, well, what's going on here? Why is the gut bacteria so out of whack that it's making it smell?" And so she adjusted their diets. She started to slowly adjust their diets over time, and sure enough, the gut bacteria started to calm down,
Mm.
and their depressive episodes started to get better, and they were no longer having suicidal ideation. And they were soon able to start managing a lot of their symptoms.
So are you saying that just eating a proper diet can maybe uh eliminate you going to a facility like that?
Yeah, in some ways. Now, I mean, not always, right? I mean,
Okay,
not
okay.
always, but
All right.
it will definitely it's one of the again, it's an integrative approach. It is looking at the whole picture of health instead of saying, "Here, take this pill to treat that symptom." It's looking at a whole system of health. But it's also going back to, understanding what our bodies have been through and what the bodies of people who've gone before us have also been through. We have had so many people before us who have gone through so much famine. I have predominantly Irish family, and a
Okay.
lot of my family came over here during the potato famine. I
Wow.
had a lot of starving family members coming here to the US. And so guess what one of my problems is? One of my problems is boy, does my middle section here love to hold on to all that fat.
Wow. And all the time we probably thinking it's us and it's from our ancestors. Okay? Wow.
Oh, yeah, we can blame the genes. We can blame the family inheritance of our genes for honestly quite a few of our problems. But it doesn't stop at just say, "Oh, well, it's a family problem. I can't help it." Well, no, you can.
That's no excuse to stay the way you are.
It's not an excuse, but it's an understanding. It's that
Thank
intellectual
you.
understanding of saying,
Thank you.
this is why this is happening. You know,
No, I'm sorry. I just said that because people used to tell me, well, this is just the way I am. Okay, you can be just the way you are over there by yourself because I don't want to be around you. Okay?
And I mean,
Period.
there is truth. Now, here's the interesting there. There is truth to that statement. This is just how I am. And again, I want to go back to the brain on this one because again, for these people to like sit back and be like, to change this, they're going to have to get uncomfortable. And the problem with that is that when you get uncomfortable, and especially if you're not around other people who are
Yeah.
awarding you for your effort, who are not saying, "Wow, you're doing such a good job. Wow, we're so proud of you." When you are not having that internal conversation with yourself of saying, "You're doing a good job. You deserve this reward. You deserve to be praised. You deserve to be loved." When we're not having that conversation with ourselves or other people are not having that conversation with us, our body gets stressed out. And what happens when our body gets stressed out? Well, we have the fight or flight response. Everybody's heard of it, right? Well,
Yes.
what does the
Yes.
fight or flight
Yes.
response actually do? All right. Well, a long time ago, I'm going to say as much evolution kind of sucks because it doesn't change very quickly. Okay.
Mhm.
Does not
Mhm.
change quickly at all. Long time ago, the fight or flight response was the whole idea of like, oh crap, I'm about to be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. And so the fight or flight response would kick in, would give us a burst of energy so that we could run away and survive another day. But the idea was we got out of the stress, we got out of the danger, and we returned back to balance, homeostasis, right? Then we can
Right.
go on and live a happy life. Yay.
Yes.
Not like that anymore.
Mm-mm.
But we're constantly stressed, right? Everything
Right.
is stress.
Right.
Life itself is a stress.
Yes.
But our flight or flight response has not responded to that yet. It still has the same idea of, oh my God, I'm about to be eaten. I've got to survive. And so what does it do? Well, it starts to shut things off.
Mhm.
Fight or flight response shuts things off. It says, well, to survive, I don't need an immune system. No sense in fighting off the flu if I'm not going to survive tomorrow. So I
Yeah,
don't
that's
need an
true.
immune system. Okay. It does shut down certain parts of our digestion. But the most important thing is after a while, it also starts to shut down areas of the prefrontal cortex. So there's this area of the brain that's right here, right at the
Mhm.
front. Okay, the
Mhm.
prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the area where we make logical decisions. Okay, so for if you're on a diet, for instance, the prefrontal cortex was what goes, I should eat the salad instead of the Twinkie.
Mhm.
Okay. Problem is that the fight or flight response, cortisol and all those stress hormones eventually shut that prefrontal cortex down. It dulls the prefrontal cortex. And what happens then is all that information is sent to this lower level of the brain. It sits right about here. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
This is the first area of the brain to form. So this is where the amygdala, the hippocampus, all of those areas lie.
Mhm.
And what those areas are is it relies on a few things. It relies on memory, script, and emotions.
Okay.
So our reactions go from being these logical, well thought out reactions and decisions to emotionally driven reactions that rely on old scripts and old memories.
Mm.
So when you are looking at that and you're thinking of somebody who likely came from families that, might not have been the most supportive.
Oh, okay.
Okay, who could potentially and I know that back in the day, spanking your kids or hitting your kids wasn't necessarily seen as abusive.
It
Today,
wasn't. It wasn't.
it wasn't. Not at
Like
least not
it's
in
like you
terms of the generation of the time, right? Today,
exactly.
today, on the other hand, that's a whole different set of moral circumstances. But you were having kids who were getting hit. I mean, man, I remember when my mom would go for the fly swatter. Oh boy, watch out.
Oh wow. Just the fly swatter. That's nothing.
And then right, and then, somebody pointed out here in the chat, enslaving them on farms, yeah, getting them out and working from the crack of dawn. I remember we had kids in my school who would go out and they would work on the farm before the sun was even up, and they would drive their tractor to school. They'd park their tractor in the parking lot, and then they'd go to school all day.
What?
So this is stress. This is stress upon stress upon stress. And so the people who are like, this is just the way I am,
Yeah.
they have likely tried to change who they are but they didn't have the support. They didn't have the right internal script. They didn't have that amount of self-love and self-respect and that self-support that they needed to overcome what that stress response is doing. And so they have found themselves failing time and time and time again and have finally just reserved themselves to being, this is just the way I am.
Okay, you can be that way by yourself over there. And see, I can't say.
We don't have to accept it. We don't.
No, I'm not. I'm not. What I'm saying is, I used to say that too at a point in time, but I'm not. I don't want to be that person. Okay, I want to be the type of person that people gravitate towards, not run from. Okay, so I said I have to change. Then there's no other way. Okay, I can't bring that crap from the past. Keep bringing that stuff from the past, and it keeps haunting me anyway. So I'm like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think too, this is also why we're seeing a rise in a lot of people going no contact, with a lot of their family. I don't know if you saw that most recent Oprah podcast episode, where she talked about, this whole no contact
I love it.
epidemic. I love it too.
I need my peace. I need my peace and my freedom. I don't care if I ever see you again on this side of the world. I don't care, because I'm gonna have peace and I'm gonna have freedom from all of that crap. If I spend the rest of my life alone, okay, I don't care.
Yeah. And so the magic recipe to all of that, though, is a certain amount, again, of self-love. I deserve to be around people who support me.
Period.
Period. I deserve to be around people who support me. I deserve to be around people who love me and support me and want to see me succeed and
I want
forward.
I want everybody here to say that to themselves. Say it out loud, okay? Until you can say it and mean it, okay?
Write it. I used to write it on sticky notes. I love sticky notes because I could put them everywhere. There were so many times throughout my life that I had to put these reminders on sticky notes so I could see them. And then there's something about saying them out loud to yourself.
Yes, exactly. You're manifesting. You're manifesting the things, the laws of attraction that you want in your life. You have to speak it. Okay?
Yes. Put that energy out into the universe, and the universe is going to send that energy right back to you.
Absolutely, tenfold.
Okay. And there's and again, I can even go into the whole, the whole physiology behind speaking things into power too. Cause
Go ahead.
Ayurveda has this wonderful thing where our ears are very specifically structured. There's a very specific process that sound goes through in order to get to the brain to be processed. And again, Ayurveda has seen this. So these super smart dudes, they went up, 5,000 years ago, went up on a mountain in India and had a conference and came down and kind of taught everybody, like, here's what we've noticed in the world. And so they knew these things before they can actually even see them, which I find to be absolutely enthralling, right? It's so interesting. And what they found is that, there's a structuring mechanism to hearing.
Okay.
So have you ever had a thought, and that thought, when you're just thinking it, just bouncing around like a rubber ball in a sealed off room, just bouncing and bouncing and bouncing, and nothing is coming from it?
Okay.
You just got that thought bouncing around in your head, and you can't, and it just isn't going anywhere. And then you sit down with that friend and you start talking to them about that idea. And that friend doesn't even have to say anything. It's just the simple fact of hearing yourself say it. All of a sudden, it just starts to make sense.
Oh.
It starts to take structure. It starts to form itself into, and you're like, oh. And then all of a sudden, you kind of have this aha moment.
Boom.
Okay? That is the magic of words. That is the magic of that is the power of manifesting and putting those things out there. And I'm going to say this much. Listen to yourself. Okay, I have so many people who are like, oh, I couldn't be right. That can't be right. Oh, oh, I'm not that smart. Oh, I'm not this. Yes, you are. You absolutely are. And if you want to overcome that family heritage, that family trauma that we all inherit, start to talk to yourself and tell yourself what you need to hear. Be your own best friend. If you had a friend who was coming to you with the problems that you had and they were telling you, what would you tell that friend? What would you say to that person?
Starts within. Start with yourself. Right?
Absolutely, it does. 100%. It starts right here. And again, it's all about that willingness, though, to get uncomfortable. Okay. And so this is where, a lot a lot of different spiritualities and religions call it a lot of different things. What I've always heard it called is called shadow work. Right.
Yeah.
So, get in there, get doing that shadow work. Okay. Get uncomfortable, but understand the reason you're doing it is out of a sense of deep self-love, deep self-respect, and deep self-healing.
I love that. I love that. Okay. We can talk here all day long. Let me see if anybody have any questions.
I just saw a message that's saying even the chat is blowing up.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Randolph. Thank you, Romy. Let's see if anybody have any questions. No love for what? No love for chivies, chives, civvies. I don't know.
Civvies. I know it. I know that word.
Oh,
No love for civvies. For
oh, okay,
civilians.
okay, all right, yeah, duh. Let's
And
see. I'm sorry. Everything has been tailored around men too, and studies. Okay, and studies for men. Yeah, of course. Because they are the elite or whatever. They're the ones that we the what do they call the men? I'm sorry. They call them the breadwinner. So of course they're gonna put themselves first and put us last. When
that is the horribly sad part about research. And again, one of the reasons that I got into research is because a lot of our science is they look at the foundation as being male.
of course.
It's the foundation of everything being men. And so our research, even our research in mental health, is all mainly based off of experiences of men and symptoms of men. And women, we don't experience these things in the same way. And we don't respond to treatment in the same way.
No,
It's
don't.
one of the reasons that I got so interested, because to be honest with you, I feel like women especially really carry the bonds of a lot of that familial trauma with them a lot more heavily than men. I feel like oftentimes it's really carried through that maternal line. And so I really do feel like if this world and if this planet is going to heal, it starts with the women. Once the women heal, and once we are, and I believe we're getting there. I do believe we are getting there. But once women heal, and once women realize their power and come together to support each other in that process, watch out. We're gonna have a whole new society can arise from that.
Watch out.
Watch out. Absolutely.
What did Randolph say? Randolph said recently heard research the female egg in the womb possesses an incredible intelligence that chooses the best sperm. Why would we want the best?
Female egg. Oh my God. I'm so glad somebody brought that up.
Okay.
Somebody brought that up. For the longest time, science actually thought that the female egg was just like, I'm here and just hanging out, doing nothing. Right?
Okay.
Just waiting for the sperm to do all the work.
Okay.
It's the furthest from the truth. It is the furthest from the truth. What actually is happening is as soon as that egg gets, leaves in and travels down the fallopian tube, what that egg is actually doing is, again, it is responding to all of the environmental cues around it.
Oh.
One of the environmental cues is as soon as sperm is released, the egg actually starts to release a chemical into the bloodstream, a hormonal chemical into into the stream of the woman, and basically what it is doing is it's sending signals to the strongest sperm, and the egg is actually choosing the sperm that it wants to actually combine with. So it is not a passive process on behalf of the woman at all. In fact, the egg is doing kind of overtime work to find the best sperm within its options. Granted, I mean, if your options are
Can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Let me ask you a question. So, what's the point of artificial insemination? That they didn't have that back in the day anyway. So, I'm just saying.
Well, it's one of the reasons that artificial insemination is there's one of the reasons that they have to inseminate so many eggs, because we're basically circumventing that whole egg choosing the strongest sperm thing. And so when that egg realizes like, no, this isn't going to work, it doesn't let it go really much further than that. So it's one of the reasons that when you you do IVF, it's one of the reasons they harvest so many eggs, because the first things first is you have to harvest so many eggs, because out of the 20 or 30 that you're actually harvesting, you may only get 3 that are viable. And then from that 3, then they actually have to take a close look at the sperm and see the health of the sperm, and they have to pick out the healthiest sperm. And then they have to introduce that to the egg, and then they have to sit back and keep their fingers crossed that that actually takes.
And that's what you're paying for.
And that's what you're paying for. And so, and it's again because it is not a passive process. It's not just sperm meets egg and boom, we have baby. There's a
Right.
whole lot more into that, that has evolved over thousands of generations to ensure, that we have relatively healthy children, to pass on our genes later on. Um, so, but again, this even goes back to why we have to ensure the health of the mother and father before that baby is even conceived. So we have to not only support the physical health of the sperm and the egg, but we also need to make sure that their mental health, that their spiritual health, every aspect of their life is in order. And it's one of the reasons why one of the classes that I oversee, because I'm the program director for our bachelor's program at the university I teach at. And one of the classes I oversee is Happy Healthy Parents and Baby. For the longest time, it was called Happy Healthy Mother Baby, but it was leaving out a key part, and that was dad. Because the health of the sperm, the health of the egg rely on the physical, spiritual, emotional, and mental health of both parents.
I love that.
And there's
And
a whole way. There's a whole way. When these people when they get married and when they decide we want to have kids, you have to go through a whole consultation, and they look through and they start to ask you questions. What were your parents like? What was your childhood like? All of these different questions. And then you work through all those issues. And once you
you know
all
what?
those issues and they claim you healthy, then they go, okay, go ahead and go try. But try on
I was
these
just
days, try it these times, try it, and they give you a clear outline of like, here's how to try to not pass on that trauma and not pass on.
that's good. That's good. That's good. But before we get to that point, we need to ask the person that we see as our prospective partner these questions. So then if you start seeing things in their history, like maybe you want to rethink marrying this person, okay? Because all this trauma and all this stuff, you're going to bring in, all this is clearing their ancestry stuff on top of your baggage. You want that?
Find out what luggage they're carrying. Because
Exactly.
here's the thing is it's one thing if they are willing to put that luggage down and say, that doesn't belong to Maddie. It's
Right.
a whole other thing where, I'm sorry, this is just how I am.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Somebody in the chat did ask, do I believe that chronic illness could be from generational trauma? Absolutely. Absolutely it can. So again, when we're looking at the field of epigenetics is really starting to take off, and it's another kind of like side hobby of mine. I love reading the research and the stuff coming out from this, but our genes can be turned on and off. All right. And so when what we have found is that when mom, especially while pregnant, if mom is particularly stressed out all through pregnancy, we get a baby who is born and their immune system is compromised. Babies come out and they're already anxious. They are already responding to an environment that they have not necessarily directly interacted with, but they are already responding to an environment that they have gotten messages about what this world is like,
Mm, mm,
what
mm.
I'm going to need to survive it. And like I was explaining before, when your body is consistently stressed out, when you are chronically stressed, you're chronically getting a lot of those stress hormones released into your system. And that compromises your immune system. It compromises your digestion. It compromises all those levels that are going to help to keep you healthy. And so we see a rise in inflammation. We
Yes.
see a rise in leaky guts. We see a rise in, pain and mental health issues. We see a lot of rise in a lot of these issues. So, absolutely, a lot of what we deal with is due to a lot of what happened before us.
Yeah,
So,
right.
we just have to, again, we just need to be able to recognize it and say, yep, that's what happened. And now here's how I fix it. Here's how I address it.
Let me say this. What's her name? So I said that she said I'm getting my CDTSPD okay diagnosis right now.
Oh, CPTSD.
Yeah.
So complex PTSD. So complex PTSD, yeah, for those who don't know. So there's PTSD, which is like you have a like for myself, I have PTSD. I when I was in the military, I had an electrical panel blow up in my face and I spent a year in a burn rehab unit. Okay. So I've got PTSD. Flashes and bangs. Watch out, I hit the floor. Now, complex PTSD is a little bit different, right?
Right.
Complex PTSD is usually something that has happened over years. It starts in can start as early as in childhood. It starts uh, it happens over quite a long period of time. It's not just one event, but it's a whole complex situation over time that consistently repeats itself that ends up developing into PTSD. Um,
Somebody asked a question about dementia and then slash I would say Alzheimer's because I just heard recently, I don't know if it's true, they said that Bruce Willis is going to be sent to a care facility. What's the difference in a care facility and a hospice?
I don't
I
know.
asked you three questions. My bad.
Probably how rich you are.
Oh, well, that explains. That's why I don't know.
Yeah, probably the difference between a care facility and hospice is how rich you are.
Okay. All right. I don't know if they're basically one of the same because he's been living at home ever since he was
Yeah.
diagnosed. So,
Yeah, yeah, and so I don't know what the question was around dementia and Alzheimer's. That's a really complex problem. They're not 100% sure. There's a lot of things, that they have identified that play roles, including genetics, as well as including just kind of overall health of the individual through their lifetime. There's some risk factors and things for Alzheimer's, but that one I can't speak on. It's not one I'm more focused in on. Again, my area of focus is mainly depression, anxiety, and PTSD. So the Alzheimer's one I can't honestly comment on. I don't know enough about it. It's a very complex issue.
yeah, right. And I know one of the things tied to it is like the amount of sugar that an individual, intake
Mhm.
on a daily basis. Okay. And these things, what we eat, affects our overall health. Everything is interconnected.
Yeah. And
Mind, body, and spirit. Sorry.
no, you're 100% right. The all three of those areas. But I see a comment here, that I do want to put in.
Sure.
I want to touch on it very lightly just because being a white woman, this is not something that I can directly speak on. But I will say that, even the slavery that we experienced here, that a lot of Black Americans experienced early on in the creation of this country, their ancestors are still very much feeling the impact, very much feeling the impact. It is definitely, those traumas are most certainly passed down through family lineage, through through our genes. But we see this outside of, outside of even these contexts. We see this in a lot of the children who survived a lot of like the Eastern European wars. If you look at like Slovakian children, a lot of the children who, again, were not directly impacted by the wars in Eastern Europe. These were people who they weren't even pregnant yet. They just experienced the war. They went through the war. They got out of it during peacetime, ended up getting married, ended up having children. Those children were still born and they were worried children. There were obvious, there was obvious impact from that experience, what the parents experienced, that was passed down to those children. So if we see direct correlation like that, can you imagine if we actually were to look back at generations?
Yeah, look at the what happened with the Jews. I mean, with the concentration camps. Like we were slaves, we were also they hung us from trees. Okay, and the Chinese, they came in, helped to build the railroads. How they were treated. And we look at living on stolen land. How the uh Indian
Americans, even
American Indians.
yeah, Native Americans, even with the Trail of Tears. And we actually are seeing even the fallout from that today. We are still seeing the health impacts of those decisions today on Native Americans today. It's one of the reasons that they have some of these very specific health issues that they do. They have a higher rate of heart disease. They have a higher rate of diabetes. And it's all because of what happened to their ancestors. Their ancestors were completely uprooted from their land. They were driven through, you know, trauma that I can't even begin to imagine.
Me neither.
And then plopped off in these barren places, where they had to rely on whatever the government could do. And yeah, alcoholism. Alcoholism is another one. And alcoholism does actually change the physiology, and again, and that is felt through generations. So, we physically see what the impacts of these of the past. We see the ripples of the past continuing to have impact today. We see
I am
the ripples even today.
I am told even some of the slave masters, their children's children is also impacted by their parents enslaving people.
Oh, absolutely. That
You
yeah,
understand,
it's a drop, and that those drops, they don't just stop where they land.
right? And whatever you do in this world, you paid back tenfold. If not through you, your children's children. Okay, so be careful what you do because you get it back tenfold. Okay, there's no escaping that.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
absolutely. And so that's, it's really really where, like I said, where my research, where my writing goes. And so if you want to check out what I've written about here on Substack, I kind of give more of like kind of behind the scenes look at my kind of thoughts and where a lot of my writing comes from. Then I have my website where I write a little bit more, probably academically. My teacher voice, I think, comes out a little bit more. But I've got quite a bit up there right now. Like I said, right now, what I'm working on is the book that I'm working on is particularly on this topic. And, I'm looking as far back as kind of like the Victorian era where, where when we had children working in factories, and we had, children who basically the minute that they were born, the minute they could stand and walk and talk, they were treated like a mini adult who was supposed to go out and earn a living, you know, and the impacts that we're feeling now from all of these things. Um,
Right? That's one of the reasons why they passed that law. Children can only work starting at what, 16 or 18?
and we have lawmakers today trying to dismantle those protections.
Yeah. Yeah,
We
exactly.
literally have lawmakers who are trying to again, to that are restarting generational trauma that we have worked so hard to dismantle, and now we have people who are realizing that healed people heal other people, and a healed community is not as easy to control.
Yeah, right. And so you're going to traumatize the kids, right? Take us back to the 1929s, and you're taking all the safety out of it. You're getting rid of all the regulation, and so you're going to have more accidents out there as a result because people are going to be turning their head. I ain't seen nothing, and that's your kid.
Yep.
So they would prefer to pay the kid versus paying us because they say the parents they want too much money, so we will pay the kids $8 an hour. I know what's next. Okay.
Oh yeah. And so that's what I'm focusing on right now. So I'm getting, I've started writing that, and I'm trying to work through now how, now that like I said, now that I got back from India, and again, even in India, you still see the residual trauma that is, from the time of British rule and from partition, especially. You see a lot of the leftovers from that. And so I took a step back while I was in India just, because I again, focusing on learning and teaching there, but, I'm gonna be trying to figure out how to kinda chunk up what I'm writing about and kinda putting it out on Substack. And then the, research article that I'm currently writing, I'm about halfway through with that. I'm thinking probably by next summer that will be out and be ready to be published.
Well, if you're interested in coming back and talking about that, we would glad to have you.
Absolutely, so I can't talk too much about it until it's
Sure.
published.
Of
It
course.
is like an unspoken rule that, you
Of course.
hold your cards tight until you got that work out there, and then you publish it, and then you go out and promote it. But I would absolutely love to come back. And it was wonderful, talking to everybody here. I've been talking for about an hour, so
Okay, yeah. Beth said that they want to put young children in factories and wanting to marry them off. That doesn't surprise me. Okay. We're going back to those times where, back in the medieval times, everybody was having sex with everybody. So everybody was basically brother and sister because you didn't have enough people to marry off. So you had to have sex with each other to keep the population going. Okay. So it's like, okay, bro, what's up? That's when we best Cain and Abel.
I'm about to get some really horrible jokes I remembered in the military, but what I do want to leave people with though is, if there's one thing that you could take away from this long and winding conversation that we have had is that, if you recognize certain patterns in your life today and you recognize like, wow, like my family's been dealing with this for so long. My mom was the same way, my grandparents, on back. Be willing to get uncomfortable, but have the script in mind of remembering that I am uncomfortable and I'm doing this work because I deserve to be happy, deserve to be healed, I deserve to be loved. Okay? I deserve I deserve these things. And so when you start to feel that body, when you feel that brain saying, I'm too stressed, I can't take it, and that amygdala and that hippocampus and that medulla oblongata, they all start kicking in like, no. Just go back. It's just how we are. Just say these things to yourself. I deserve to be healed. I deserve to be happy. Okay. So if there's that one takeaway, that is the takeaway. And then go out and reward yourself. Go out and get that nice cup of coffee. Go out and get that Snickers bar, whatever. Give yourself a little dopamine hit to get you through. Okay. And then before you know it, it's going to get easier and easier. And then after a while, it's going to become completely effortless. It's going to become a habit. And you'll have ended that trauma, and that trauma will have ended with you. And bravo for doing that work.
Thank you so much to end this on such a positive note. Every time I have a conversation, I want to end it on a positive note. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I loved it, Margaret. Hopefully, we're going to get together again sometime soon. I love having these conversations.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. You know how to get in contact with me, and I know how to get in contact with you. Okay? All right.
It was nice meeting everybody.
All right. Take care, everyone.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.